Hello and welcome to the very first I Eat What I Need video blog, and I've decided to start blogging in this way because I've been writing the blog for a while and started to feel quite comfortable with that, and I thought I would push myself to be a bit more creative and a bit more brave and actually connect in a more face-to-face way with the people who read my blog. So so I'm excited and a little bit worried and not quite sure if this video will ever actually reach the internet. So if it has, that's because I've been very brave. So today I wanted to talk about attachment and how our attachment to food is expressed in our lives. And I'm very interested in this because I'm currently exploring what it would mean to live a life where I wasn't so attached to food. And I think if I look at my own personal history of eating and of feeding myself, I think I can see a really strong attachment to food, and I can see how that is expressed in my life. And I think that is expressed through valuing food above other things. So believing that food is the most or one of the most important things, and eating is one of the most important experiences in my life. And I think good everyday examples of this are the fact that every Friday when I was working as a summer school manager, I would make cakes for all of my team, and I thought that using food in that way was one of the best things about me, and I used that very sort of comforting sort of homemade flour and sugar fueled food to forge connections with people, to forge connections with my classmates at university, with my colleagues at work. I think that's something that we do that's quite natural. The sharing and giving of food is a very natural human thing. But if you don't express your connection with someone through food, does that mean that you can't have a caring, affectionate connection with that person? If you choose not to use food as a way of expressing that connection with your colleagues, with your classmates, can you still maintain that affection and that caring expression with that person without using food as a vessel for that? I think also a very common thing I feel within myself and I hear with others that I talk to is valuing food and how that expresses itself when we socialise with others. You know, you'll have an idea of perhaps let's get together, get together with friends, get together with family, maybe a restaurant will get chosen. You might then immediately go online, check out the menu of that restaurant, think about what might be nice. Then when you actually go to that place to have that meal, perhaps there might be some anxiety or some trepidation about whether you've chosen the right thing. Is the food up to the expectation that you'd created? And perhaps the crushing disappointment maybe of not having the intense sensory experience that you had hoped for, or perhaps not having the quantity maybe that you'd hoped for. And suddenly the evening or perhaps the celebration that was maybe someone's birthday, or that was maybe a leaving do, or for whatever reason that you decided to get together with other people, the focus is very firmly on the consumption of this particular food, rather than being able to actually appreciate that person that you're celebrating, or connect with the people around you, because the excitement, the stimulation, and the anxiety around getting the food that you want is taking up a huge amount of your attention and your focus. And that, I think, is expressed very clearly when you look at family celebrations. And I think you can spend hours actually cooking a huge feast, eating a huge feast, digesting a huge feast, and then cleaning up after the huge feast. And you wonder, when did I get the opportunity to have a real connection with those other members of my family? If we didn't have this huge focus on the special celebratory food, if that was taken away, what would be left? How would the celebration be? How would we connect with each other? What would be said? I think it's a very interesting question to ask yourself, and to ask other members of your family as well, how comfortable they would feel if all of the food focus and the eating focus was perhaps shifted or changed in some way. Another way that I think our attachment to food is manifested in our lives is perhaps having these constant food thoughts, constant thoughts about what am I going to have for lunch, what am I going to have for dinner, sort of really looking forward to it, and using that as kind of fuel to get you through your day. And one thing I've noticed within myself is that when I feel that I've been promised something, so perhaps I've had a conversation with my partner and we've decided that we're going to get a particular food, or I'm going to eat a particular thing, and then maybe at the last minute plans change, you know, that food is not available, or we decide to do something else, and I'm interested to notice how annoyed I feel that the plan has changed, that I've kind of geared myself up for having this particular substance, for having this particular food, and then suddenly this food is almost taken away from me, and how irritable I can become when that has happened. And I'm wondering if you would like to reflect on how you feel that attachment to food and that attachment to the eating experience is, how that shows itself in your life. How does, when the focus is on food and on eating, perhaps when that focus is valued above other things, maybe your relationships with people, maybe your relationship with yourself, when food is placed and eating is placed above other experiences that can be equally nourishing, what does that mean for us as whole people, as whole beings? Because I feel that my practice is to ask myself, how might I nourish myself both with food but also in other ways? And I am a whole person, a whole being, and food is only one aspect, eating is only one aspect of my nourishment. Food nourishes me because I get the nutrients that I need to live in a body and to maintain my physical body. I need to eat for survival. And so I do need a certain amount of attachment to food. You know, as babies, we develop a hugely strong attachment to our mothers, to the food that we eat, either from breast milk or from bottled milk, because that is the only thing that is keeping us alive at that particular time in our life. And without that attachment, we would die. So a certain amount of attachment to food is completely natural and normal and indeed desirable. However, when you feel that the focus and the pull of food is so very strong that you're unable to concentrate on other aspects of your life, maybe you can't focus on the conversation you're having with your friend because you're thinking about the food that's in your bag. Maybe you can't relax and enjoy the weekend because you're so busy preparing food for your family and then cleaning up after it all. is food the center of your existence as a human being? Or is it just one aspect of your existence as a human being? And I'm interested in looking at other practices that help us to consume and fill ourselves up and nourish ourselves without necessarily eating. Because we consume food, but we can also consume many other things. I'm wondering how would we, if we wanted to, how would we consume the company that we're with? For me, consuming the company that I'm with, consuming the people that I'm with, is about listening intently to those around me. It's about making eye contact. It's about being really, really available to the people I'm with at that moment. And I'm consuming the company, and I'm consuming the connection that we're creating. I'm thinking of interesting questions that I could ask that person. I'm being curious about their experience of life. And how can I consume, perhaps, the affection that then might come to me from that person? If somebody touches my arm, if somebody perhaps takes my hand, if someone gives me a hug, can I really give myself to that touch? We actually, depending on how affectionate we are, we might kind of routinely maybe hug and kiss people on the cheek quite often, but do we actually consume that touch in a way that our body has a chance to feel how nourishing that is? You need to feel touch in order to consume it. So there's touch, and then there's touch, and there's hugs, kind of the lukewarm, perfunctory hug, and then there's the embrace that comes from really allowing your body to feel another body, and allowing that other body to also feel your body. That actually might be quite difficult for many of us. So consuming that affection and that touch that may come from someone else, and that actually can come from ourselves. We can self-massage is a really powerful and beautiful practice, and a very safe practice as well, if you don't feel very comfortable being touched by other people. Self-massage of the belly is a beautiful thing to do. And I'm wondering also, how often do we actually consume the setting? I've become very interested in bringing down the level of stimulation in my life. So if that means going to the park, and rather than going to the park and listening to a podcast, going to the park and taking a picnic, going to the park and taking a book, going to the park with a friend, with a flask of tea, all of these things are perfectly fine and lovely. But it's quite interesting if you just bring the level of stimulation down a notch, and you just look for the sake of looking. You look at a tree just for the sake of looking at that tree. You look up at the sky just to witness what the sky looks like. You lay your body down on the ground just to notice what it feels like to connect your body to the ground, to witness the effect of gravity on your body, to feel the touch within the body. Consuming the setting, consuming the company, consuming the touch and affection that you receive from yourself, from others. These are all very simple things in our daily lives that can be very nourishing. And rather than focusing on, I need to break my attachment to food, I need to stop eating, I need to make food something that's not so important in my life, in my practice I have found that I've had a lot more success and a lot more ease when actually, rather than banishing something from my life or getting rid of something, I'm actively practicing inviting things into my life. I'm not worrying so much about the food and the attachment to food. That is a reality. That is something that maybe I struggle with. But rather than focusing on that, can I focus on being present to the setting, the company, the affection that I receive, consuming and nourishing myself in many other different ways. And funnily enough, the attachment to food, then it may gently weaken and lessen over time. And that is very much my experience, that in the past what would have been perhaps classed as overeating, that as my relationship with my body deepens, that overeating just sort of gently lessens. And so I might still be overeating, but it doesn't feel that I'm eating the same quantity. It doesn't feel that I'm eating as frequently. It feels that the attachment to food, which shifts and changes over my cycle, but the baseline seems to gently lessen as I invite deeper nourishment from other nourishing practices in my life. So my invitation to you would be to notice how your attachment to food, the strength of your attachment to food, shows itself in your life. Notice when you feel disappointed or you feel angry when you don't get the food that you want. Notice that drive and that desire to get certain foods at certain times. Notice when the focus is on the food rather than on perhaps the people or the activity or the celebration, and invite the focus to shift onto something else. Listen intently to the people around you. Be honest with those around you that maybe you feel quite stimulated by the food. I think it's okay. I think it's really okay to be sitting on a train with someone, having a conversation and say, wow, I'm having a great conversation with you, but I'm noticing that I feel really, really distracted by this food that's in my bag. And I have such a strong attachment to food at the moment, and I'm really working with it, but it's a difficult practice. Notice how saying the truth of who you are can deepen that connection with that friend, a safe friend, a friend that you feel comfortable being vulnerable with, and how actually saying that you have this attachment to food in this moment actually might help to dissipate that feeling of strong attachment. I really find that works really powerfully. So investigating your attachment to food, investigating when the focus is on food and eating, and investigating how that focus could shift to other experiences, the company, receiving affection and touch from other people, the setting, the connection you have with others. Thank you.